Frankie, Man United on Sunday. You're looking forward to it?
I am. I've been confident from early. So yeah, I think we're gonna absolutely steamroll them, mate.
Is that confidence still there? You still feeling it?
100%. Yes, very much still there.
I've been confident until I watched us get slapped by Spurs, but I have to admit, watching Man U stutter against Fenerbahce last night has given me a little bit of optimism, if you like. I was watching them thinking they've just got nothing. There's nothing about them whatsoever, and they're really struggling in front of goal at the minute. So if it wasn't for West Ham, I'd be feeling really confident. It's just, well, 50% of the game is about West Ham, and I think that's what's bringing me back down. I was wondering, what team do you want to see for? Would you change the goalkeeper for Sunday?
I would. Yeah, I would actually. I just feel like that the centre-half pairing need a bit of confidence in the player behind them. I think that's a little bit shaky at the moment. And yeah, I think little tweaks. We don't need a full overhaul. Obviously, we've got no Kudus, so that's obviously another change that needs to be made. So I don't think we need to go too crazy because we've already got to change that. But yeah, I would change the goalkeeper. I just feel we need a bit of stability. And while I don't think Fabianski's shot stopping's quite as good as Areola's, just because Fabianski's a bit slower to react these days. I just want a keeper who's going to instill confidence in that defensive line in front of him.
And what would you do in attack? I appreciate I'm missing out the middle of the pitch, but there's a reason for that. So what would you do further up the pitch?
Yeah, to be honest, I just want to see Somerville. So Somerville obviously comes in on the left. The rest of it is a little bit tricky because obviously no Kudus makes it tough. I would love to not have to rely on Antonio for this one. However, I don't really see what other options we've got. So it's Antonio down the middle and Bowen on the right. And, there is a lot to be said for the fact that may bring a little bit more balance to things. We've got a natural left-sided player. We've got Bowen in his best position. And hopefully we can see an Antonio who's up for it. So, yeah, that would be my front three.
We did a podcast on Tuesday and we asked for people's any comments/questions. And Josh shared just a comment for the podcast later in the week. Watching West Ham in the second half against Spurs of this destruction, I was fuming at the midfield for losing the ball so many times, so many turnovers. We've all spoken about the wing backs being caught up high, but their confidence in positioning became a joke because of the turnovers. Should never have happened. And I'm talking about all of the midfield, not just who. What's your thoughts?
No, I couldn't agree more. And if you're going to play with those high defensive wider players, if that's what you're going to do, the most important thing is you don't get caught in possession in the middle of the park, because if you do, they're out of position and we're gonna come unstuck. So it's really important that we don't give the ball away cheaply, that we don't get caught in possession. And yeah, it's so important. So no, I couldn't agree more. But I think when you saw the average positioning of our players, funnily enough, we didn't play that much of a different system to Tottenham. When you look at the sort of where the average position of each player was on the pitch, we pretty much had a back three. We had the high fullbacks and then we had the two sitters in the midfield. And it's the difference between us and Tottenham was that those sitters could be further forward. And the reason they can be further forward is that they've got more athleticism than our lot. Our lot, if they go forward, they can't get back. So it causes us to play really deep. And I don't think it's a good thing because it invites pressure. It allows teams to push onto us. It's not ideal. So that midfield, that central area at the moment, I think is a lot to be said for why this system isn't quite working out for Lopetegui at the moment. And the worrying thing is I don't have the answer to it.
Yeah,
it's not for me to have the answer. It's for Lopetegui to have the answer. But what I'm saying is I can't even think of something that I could sit here with you now and go, well, we could change this, Geo, and that might solve it. I don't even have a might solve the issue situation. So
yeah, I completely agree. When I was like sort of prepping for the preview with Gonzo and we do the team we want to see, and usually I can whiz through it pretty quickly. I'm like, I know what I want to see. But when it came to this week, I put in my keeper and back forward, and I was like, don't know. So I put in Bowen and put in Somerville, and I was like, still don't know for the midfield three. I still don't know the best way to go about this, and ended up going for a 4-4-2 because of lack of options in central midfield. And there's plenty of players available. There's Alvarez, Rodriguez, Irving, Souček, Paqueta, Soler. So you've got 6 people to choose from. So it's not that there's a lack of options. There's just a lack of form, a lack of understanding between those that have been playing. And, coming into the summer and coming into the season, I thought, right, hopefully we can evolve and move away from requiring Thomas Souček, but actually he's one of the first names on the team sheet in terms of central midfield at the minute for me. It's like, who plays with Thomas Souček? Before it wasn't that. It was like, who plays instead of Thomas Souček? But now it's almost like, who's playing alongside him? And this is a strange situation we find ourselves in. But I think he has to play because of the goal threat he possesses, which isn't something that you can say for many of the other players. I think only Javi Bowen has a greater goal threat for us than Thomas Souček, and we're missing Kudus as well, so I think he has to start. But it's just I think Alvarez needs to come in, but I don't trust him, Frankie. This is the thing, we've seen him against Liverpool getting sent. I kept saying it was Chelsea, but someone correctly corrected me. It was Liverpool he got sent off at, but he should have been sent off against Chelsea as well. And I just think the guy's like a walking yellow card. I'm almost confident Alvarez is getting booked, and I don't even know if he's starting yet. So I too struggle with the answer for the central
That's the
midfield.
problem, Geo, that we've got at the moment. We've got a manager. We've got one of those managers who plays a certain way, and he don't seem to have any alternative ways of playing. So what we end up doing is we end up playing a system that we haven't really got the personnel to play that system. So normally I think we'd be sitting here right now and saying it's not necessarily personnel decisions. It's actually we need to play a totally different way of playing here, because what we've got at the moment doesn't suit the players that we've got at the football club. But I'm not convinced he will change a single style of play or formation or anything. So, like you said, we've got players. There's plenty of players in that midfield, but the way that we play football at the moment doesn't suit them. And I really would like to see a manager at this point in time who had something else to offer, who could say, actually, these are the personnel we got. This is their strengths. This is how we need to start playing football. But it seems like he's another one of these stubborn guys who's got his way of playing. And regardless of the players that he's got available to him, we're going to play that way regardless.
Yeah, I think that answer might be Souček further up, which we saw at the start of the season. Souček was cropping up in the sort of number 10 position quite often, and I feel like we're playing more of a 4-3-3 recently. I think it maybe does show perhaps the importance it was for Lopetegui to bring in Alex Garcia. Now, I'm not blaming anyone for not getting him, by the way. I think he just didn't want to come. He wanted to go to Bayer Leverkusen. And how you meant to compete with Bayer Leverkusen when they won the Bundesliga, they got Champions League football, playing, it's no contest really, but the player himself has confirmed that Lopetegui wanted him, but he wasn't going to come to West Ham. But a different type of player to what we have and what we recruited. And this is where I think the player recruitment in the summer was a little bit mismatched. We keep saying it. Walker Peters, Wan-Bissaka, Julen Fullkrug, not just Julen, but Samu Fullkrug as well. And then in midfield, Alex Garcia and Rodriguez, different types of players altogether. So we've ended up with a real mismatch of players coming in. It doesn't really make much sense. The players we were going after and players we ended up were different. And this is, I guess, one of the big reasons I really wanted Matt O'Reilly, and I appreciate he's got injured at Brighton, but that's an impact injury. It doesn't mean he would have got injured at West Ham. Probably would have, but I do feel like we're missing that player that can dictate the tempo of the game. I don't think we've got one, man. I think it shows in some games as well. So I agree with Josh there. What midfield would you go for then? I'm going to put you on the spot. I want an answer from you. So you're missing 3 players here. So
people wouldn't normally get an answer out of me for this one. Yeah, I struggle with questions like this just because
it's just
I haven't watched
I'm not
enough
going to
Man
hold
United.
you to it. Don't worry.
Huh?
I'm not going to hold you to it. Don't worry.
No, but the reason why I struggle is a little bit is that I haven't watched enough Man United. I didn't watch them last night. I was busy last night, so I didn't see them. I haven't seen them play very much at all. So it's very difficult for me to say, well, they've got a midfield like this. So to counter that, this is how I think West Ham should play. I'm purely basing it on the ability of what West Ham are, the issues that we may have had recently, and the fact that I think we've got to do something different because what we're doing at the moment doesn't seem to be working. So for me, I do have to play Alvarez because I think we just need his. He's still not that quick, is he? I mean, he still can't cover that much ground, but he certainly can do more than Rodriguez. So I would have to. Alvarez for me has to start. I have to keep Souček on there, but like you say, I want him crashing into their box again. I don't want him sitting. I mean, when you looked at the average positions for players against Tottenham, on average, we had 3 of our attacking players in their half, not in their box, in their half. Do you know what I mean? We haven't got enough players forward. So I need a midfielder to be actually trying to link up with that front 3 a little bit more. So if we can get Souček crashing into the box and causing problems, then that seems to make sense to me. So Souček and Alvarez are there. The other one is the tricky one, but I've just got to put my arm around Lucas Paqueta at the moment and say, mate, it ain't happening. And
yeah,
I need you to sit this one out. And if you come off the bench, I'd be having conversations with him, just saying, "Where's your head at, mate?" Because at the moment we're not seeing it from you, and we desperately need to try and get something out of this game. And if you're not at it, then that doesn't help us. So I would probably, and as you know, I struggle with Rodriguez, but he had a better first half, but like I say, I feel like that was just because the amount of traffic that was coming at him, and he was just kind of putting his foot in there. So I'm still not going to go for Rodriguez. I'm probably going to go for Soler in there just for a bit of ball playing ability. So I'm Alvarez, Soler, and Souček. I know that will never ever happen, and that's not what we're going to see, but that's what I would do.
Yeah, I think to be fair, I mean, I'd even understand if he decided to gamble this week and play Guilherme. I'd get it. I'd say it's a bit of a roll of the dice and an act of desperation.
I would have Guilherme ready, and tell you what, I would have him ready as the replacement for Antonio.
Yeah,
I'd have him sitting there, and if Antonio ain't at it, and I would be ruthless with this as well, I would be saying, if we're seeing one of them matches where the game's going by you a little bit and you're blowing and your energy levels are not there after 60 minutes and the game's in the balance, I'd be saying, Guilherme, get on there, mate, and just terrorise them, just run at that back, at that, because they've got slightly aging defence, Man United, and they might struggle with a bit of pace and a bit of movement there. And that is my worry. I do feel like Antonio's probably not the right style of striker for Man United. I think they could wrap him up quite easily. So, yeah, I'd have Guilherme ready to say, if Antonio ain't fully at it, then on you get some.
Yeah. Anyway, I got another question from Aqua. Before we do Aqua's question, Niclas Fullkrug. I mean, this is just shambles, isn't it? An absolute shambles.
He was always injury prone. He's always been injury prone. He's never really scored many goals. He had one season. He was really a one season wonder for me, and that was always my concern with him. I always thought he wasn't the right man to come in, not just because of his injuries, but because of the style of footballer that he was. I was never convinced by it, Geo, as you know. I wasn't happy with it, and I got pelters for saying that he wouldn't get 10 goals this season. I had a few bets with people saying he won't get 10 goals this season. Okay, I'm going to win it by default because he ain't going to play, like your little comment yesterday of we'll be lucky if he plays 10 games. It is true. We would be lucky to see if he plays 10 games now. So, look, I still, for all of my criticism of him, I still saw a glimmer at Crystal Palace of a player who could put themselves about, be a right nuisance. Now, do I think that's 23 odd million pound of a player? No, I didn't. I thought that was way too much for him. But I did see that he could do a job for us and put himself about a bit when needed. And sometimes in a gritty game, you need a player like that. But it was never what I felt. We could still get that out of Antonio at the moment. Antonio can still give you that. So I didn't see why we had to spend £23 million. We needed someone with a bit more legs about him, someone who was a different type of player to Antonio, really. And at his age, Fullkrug, he was never going to be Antonio's replacement either. So I just didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, mate. It's a tough one. But how cursed are we with these sort of
Well, the thing
purchasing
is,
cash.
I'm not sure. Like, you can label this one up as a curse. This is just a bad transfer. Like you said, all the clues were there. We decided to ignore them and go and buy him anyway. So there's no bad luck here. It's just a bad transfer. I like him as a player. I liked him before he came in. I still do like him as a player, and I thought he'd do all right for us. I wasn't keen on it. I said at the time, anything over 20 million is a bit of a rip-off. Dortmund paid 15 million for him, so they've made profit on a player that's turned 31, which is just wild. It's not something you hear of too much. And the guy's made more appearances on German podcasts than he has for West Ham this season, but he's sat there saying, "Oh well, money's got nothing to do with me. Premier League clubs can pay it, and that's why Tim Steiding came and got me, and that's why I went to West Ham." And it's just the second time I've heard him speak now about the move, and it's the second time he's mentioned money as well. And it's just something I know they come, it's just a job for them, and that's the reason they come here. But it does feel like I just get the impression of it's a guy that's just purely here just to pick up a fat wage. And I don't know, it's just a bit frustrating. The thing is, though, even if he was fit, I'm not convinced it would. I don't think Lopetegui's failing because of lack of Niclas Fullkrug. I think it's that, is the tactics built to fit Fullkrug and we don't have him? No, I don't think so. If he was available, would we be doing better? Possibly, but I think that's just because we'd have an alternative to Antonio more than anything else.
How I don't think different would things be, Geo, if we'd have got Duran? How different would
you imagine? Much different, yeah. You would like to think so, because I think Duran's got that, as he showed against Everton. He's got that, and Bayern Munich. He's got that X factor. He doesn't even need a chance. He can still score without someone putting it on a plate for him. He's hitting wonder goals. This guy's got that special ingredient to make us a top footballer. And if he did move to West Ham from Aston Villa, he'd have had all the motivation under the sun. When Fullkrug speaks, it mentions money a couple of times. Duran, I'd imagine, would be mentioning proving Aston Villa wrong and that he's going to go on and win the Premier League with someone and stuff like that. I think the messaging would be a lot different. So I think it would be incredibly different. And this, previously it was always managers live and die on their signings and stuff like that. Well, I think your director of football lives and dies on his signings more than a manager does, and there will be a bit of blame game. I'm sure Steiding will say, "Oh, it's Lopetegui's not getting the best out of the new players," kind of thing. But the striker one, that's the one Lopetegui can wash his hands off and say it's got nothing to do with me, and he's right. Fullkrug sits there, says it's Tim Steiding that came and got him and whatever. So, yeah. Oh, Timmy's not looking too clever with this transfer, really. It's not only, I think the worst thing for Tim Steiding is not only is Fullkrug blowing up, Duran's smashing it as well, and Samu's smashing it. So it's not only have you missed out on a really good player. I think if Fullkrug was performing really well, you could almost say, yeah, it's frustrating we never got Duran, but at least the guy we've got is still providing. So I think the fact that he's absent and he's doing really well makes it even worse for Steiding. But just what a shambles. So hopefully he'll be back on the bench at some point. But at the minute, it's just disaster. Right, Aqua said, I got a question for the Geo and Frankie podcast. If Lopetegui is let go, who do you want to see come in? The replacement has to be available, wants to come to West Ham, and not to be pie in the sky. Amorim will not be leaving Sporting. Just saying. Wink. You'll have to wink emoji.
It's another one of them questions that I struggle to answer because I'm not an expert on managers that are available within European football, and I know who wants to come to West Ham. It's really, really tough. Look, I still have always longed for Eddie Howe, and I know it isn't something that everybody's convinced by. When he was actually available previously, there wasn't that many West Ham fans that were saying that they wanted him.
Yeah.
In fact, it was 50-50, if not more swayed to the fact that they didn't want Eddie Howe. I just like Eddie Howe being the manager that he is. And I know people will say, well, what's he doing with Newcastle now and so on? And they're not quite firing, but I just like him. He's assistant manager. He's a Canning Town boy. And so that if you want the West Ham link, there's the West Ham link for me. He's assistant manager. He's from the manor. He's from West Ham. He knows what we're all about.
His dad was at the club as well, so
yeah. So I think all of those things sort of tie in. Look, can you go and nick him from Newcastle? Absolutely not, to answer the question that was there. But do I feel like Newcastle are going to get more and more itchy with, actually, we want a bigger name and we want someone who's going to get us back in that Champions League mix because they've had a taste of it? And I feel like that's their sort of ambition, or their sort of expectation now, almost, with the money that they've got and the owners that they've got. So I think he isn't there for the long term. I think we'll see him within the next sort of 6 to 12 months moving on from Newcastle. And if that happens and we still are at that time looking for someone that we'd want to come in, that's the obvious choice for me. But, it's a bit of a lazy one because I don't know everyone that's out there. This Terzic situation for me is a big no-no. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know why we'd want him. Again, very defensive manager. Had a lot of issues at Dortmund with the fans not wanting him to be around. Why would you want to go and put yourself in that situation again? So that one I can say is a big no from me. But other than that, mate, I haven't got a lot to add, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the guy I'd pick out is the guy that I wanted in this summer, which is Areola of Bournemouth. I think I enjoy the way that Bournemouth play football, and I think the way that Bournemouth play football would suit the players we have available at the club right now. Attacking football, quick pace football on the counter attack. Their players must be encouraged to shoot from distance, because every time I tune in, Semenyo, Taverner, even Cliver and the likes as well, they're not afraid to take a shot from 20, 25 yards out. They don't mind it at all. And on Monday Night Football, they were discussing it from, I think it was about Hudson-Odoi. Nottingham Forest was always played Crystal Palace, and they were discussing sort of shots from distance. And Adam Ramsey was the guest, and so they said to him, playing at Arsenal under Arsene, what was the message about shooting from distance? So he didn't like it. If there was a pass on, you had to play the pass. Like, shooting from distance was discouraged at Arsenal. But when you watch Bournemouth, there ain't no way you can say that, because they're having shots outside that box, left, right, and centre. But I find it exciting. I find it entertaining that, and as a Bournemouth, as a neutral, when I see Bournemouth enter the final third, I feel confident that someone's having a dig at goal. Whereas that's not something I can say to every team. I think too many teams try to be mini versions of Man City, which is pass, and the attack breaks down more often than not, understandably. Like Southampton, for example, they're their prime example. It worked in the Championship because you had the best players in the Championship. Now in the Premier League, you've now got the worst players in the league, but yet you're still trying to play this open, expansive football. And I think Russell Martin's a good manager, and I think he will do well at a better club than Southampton. And, if we were linked to him, I wouldn't be against it. I think his philosophy at West Ham would be good, and appreciate that people look at Southampton and say, well, no, they're crap, look at them. But you look at the squad they've got available as well, and he's not playing with Premier League. There's a few players in there that are Premier League quality. Put it like this, Flynn Downs is one of their most important players. A player that we deem not good enough is very important. That's the level of their squad. So I think Russell Martin, I wouldn't be against it. But Areola would be mine. He was my number one choice in the summer to replace David Moyes, because the reason I wanted Moyes replaced was to see more entertaining football, and we got a manager that wasn't going to deliver that. And I agree with what you said about Terzic, not someone that would come with a guarantee of more entertaining football. I think Areola would come with that guarantee that the football's going to be more enjoyable, is going to be more attacking. And I enjoy, as a neutral, and this is my rule of thumb, I guess, to some extent with managers, when Bournemouth are on, I look forward to watching the game.
I'm not Bournemouth, it's a tough question though, right? Because as many as people didn't want Eddie Howe, do you remember when we were sort of linked with Emery and people didn't want him? There was a lot of fans who didn't want Emery. I look at him now and just think, what would I give for that man to be on the sideline?
I think the reason a lot of people did, I didn't want Eddie Howe, I'll be honest. I didn't want Eddie Howe. The reason being is because when he left Bournemouth, I thought they weren't very good by the end of it. But I think there's a bit in the middle there which is important to Eddie Howe today, which is after leaving Bournemouth, he went over to Spain and he was learning under Diego Simeone about his defence. He basically rocked up in Spain and said, I don't know how to organise a defence. That's my weakness. So I'm going to learn. And he came to Newcastle, and before you knew it, you could see similarities between Newcastle's defence and what Atletico Madrid. So he went away and worked on himself. And as fans, we're never going to know that Eddie Howe had done that and was doing that. And I think fans that didn't want Emery can be forgiven because they would have only have seen Emery at Arsenal, which wasn't, you couldn't really say it was a difficult job for sure, but you couldn't say it was a success. So I think those that didn't want Emery done it off the back of what he'd done at Arsenal rather than his previous achievements over in Spain, because for the reasons you've just given, who watches every single game, it's impossible. I don't watch Spanish football, Italian football, French. I don't have time. I don't have energy. This is my job. I watch loads of football and I still don't have time to keep my eye on all them. I've got enough with the Premier League, Championship, the Bundesliga and the Scottish Premiership. That takes up all my time. So I can understand.
It tells you though, Geo, it's enough going to be hard to get a manager that the majority are in favour of, because you got Emery, people weren't, Eddie Howe, people weren't. It's very, very difficult. It shows you how hard it is to get you're never going to be unanimous in whether everybody wants him or not, but it's hard to get something that there's a big sway to actually want in that manager. I can't name many. What we've just said there, name a manager who can come to West Ham that 80% of the West Ham fan base are going to be in favour of. It's half difficult.
Yeah, they're probably unrealistic. Like Aqua said, they're like Amorim, I think, was well received, but had that unrealistic part attached to him as well. I think there would be some names out there, but I think a lot of fans can't get their hopes up because they don't believe Sullivan would write the check to pay for a manager and to get one in. Like as far as I'm aware, he hasn't signed a new contract. Maybe he has, but I haven't seen the news that he signed a new deal. So his contract at Bournemouth currently expires at the end of this season, because he didn't want to sign more than 2. I mean, when he went to Bournemouth, he only wanted to sign 1 year because his plan was go to Bournemouth, impress, and go somewhere else bigger than Bournemouth. He was using Bournemouth as a stepping stone, and Bournemouth basically managed to negotiate it to a 2-year contract. And as far as I'm aware, he's not extended his stay there yet. So maybe that's why I think he's available. No, he's got a job, but is he gettable? I think so, because I think he laid his ambitions out before he even arrived at Bournemouth, which is, I'm going to move on from you. I'm just using you as a stepping stone, and I'm hopefully to attract a bigger club to come and get me. And we are a bigger club. It doesn't mean we're a better club than Bournemouth at the minute, but we are a bigger club than Bournemouth. And I think Bournemouth have got a ceiling, top 10 in the Premier League. They might flirt with European football, hopefully win a domestic cup. I think that's as far as they can go, really. But with West Ham, I don't know, our ceiling's greater than that. So, yeah, that would be my number 1 pick, Frankie. You haven't given me a reaction to it. Are you just...
Again, I just don't know enough about him. I mean, yeah, okay, I did watch the Arsenal game. I mean, the sending off, big, but then you still got to get at them, and you still got to be confident to want to take them on, and so he had the confidence to push on to get the win against Arsenal.
And at 1-0, didn't park the bus. There's none of that. At 1-0, he took his attacking players off and put more attacking players on. I was like, I'm going to put fresh legs up front, and we're going to go and try and get a second.
And that's the only thing that I could base my decision on whether I'd want him as a West Ham manager, is that one moment, because that's all I've really seen of Bournemouth, and it's all I've really seen of him. But I did like the fact he did go for the jugular and say, we're going to go and kill this game and make sure we get the win here. So look, in terms of approach and attitude, I can only say that was really impressive. I mean, is it a name that excites me? No, but only because I don't really know enough about him. So, that was a good, positive attitude from a manager, which actually, to be honest, there ain't enough of these days, to be honest. As like you say, as a Bournemouth manager who's got in front and they're down to 10 men, you probably would see 90% of managers think, well, that'll do us. Let's try. And then Arsenal go and get a goal from a corner in the 90th minute or something like that, and it's 1-1. So, no, it was good to see.
They completely pinned Arsenal back. Arsenal couldn't get at them because Bournemouth retained their threat on the attack. So it's prevented Arsenal from throwing bodies forward. Like you said, they were getting the ball on the halfway line, and Bournemouth were sat in, well organised, and said, "Go on then, break us down." But as soon as we get it, we're running at you. Three of us are just running. I think it's quite quick attacking football at Bournemouth, and that's why I wanted to see at West Ham. Anyway, there you go.
Quick players though, Gio. we'd need to get some fast players before we can do that.
Yeah, but but the thing is, I don't know if there's some of them are really quick, but Bowen's. I think sometimes players that are just reasonably quick but direct can make the big difference, and I think Bowen is that. I think Bowen can be direct. I think Kudus can be really direct. So I think that's why I like him, because I think I look at our squad and what they've got, and I think he could work with what we've got at West Ham. I do see similarities in terms of player profile, but you could imagine him working with what we've got at our disposal. I mean, the right back was he came on, but it's Adam Smith, the centre midfielders. He started Alex Scott in there, I mean, which is a sort of a number 10 playing central midfield against Arsenal. And then you took him off and put Ryan Christie on, but usually it's Cook and Christie. I mean, I like Lewis Cook and I like Ryan Christie, but they're not Champions League. They're both average Premier League midfielders, but yet they're fine in games. So there you go. That's my case for Areola. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, Frankie. Can I get a score prediction, please, for the Man United game?
3-1. Bowen scores 2. Somerville gets the other one.
There you go. We'd love that. Well, hopefully that's true. And we're buzzing on the podcast next week, Frankie. But if you've enjoyed this one, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up. Subscribe to Hammers, chat myself and Frankie. We'll catch you in a bit.